when Rolf was in New York, I'm Catholic, I was raised Catholic, my father was Jewish. A secular Jew, non-practicing. Trisha was raised Jewish. He wanted to meet with Trisha, and this created a different situation. So this is the two of us at this time. a little bit 1980s. I understand the and.
I'll give you a little humor here.
I'm not sure if the mustache is better than Trisha's.
My hair, a little bit of a mullet hair there, I think. Well, this was a very odd period for me because, here I am. Rolf Mengele, Josef Mengele's son wants to meet me, and came from a very, very strict conservative Jewish background. And the way I was brought up, it was like, don't buy anything German, don't have a BMW. Made to feel everybody in my family also participated in World War II in some shape or another. And plus, when I went to school, using the word that you use now, bullying, I was bullied. It was an anti-Semitic bullying though. So I was bullied for being Jewish, and it was all Jews have big nose, no wonder they're complex. All Jews have big feet, swastikas on my desk, head put down the toilet, go back to where you come from. So it was a massive stuff going on in my head. And on top of that, I had a terrific relationship with my mom, and I felt guilty. I kept on thinking, was like, what would my mother think? Would my mother would die? So came up with this idea in my head, for those of you who know New York, that I had to meet him somewhere that no one would recognize, because he'd just been on Donahue. So, and I said, Joe, I'll meet him at Trader Vic's. So if any of you know New York, I mean, it's a tourist.
There's a Polynesian-style restaurant bar in the Plaza Hotel, and nobody really knew ever went there because the drinks were overpriced and everything was so.
So when we met, we sat
in a real dark corner of that restaurant.
He explained to me, about. You could tell he was so nervous. I was so nervous. We just really didn't know what to say. But I started to calm down, and
in the middle of the conversation, he was talking to us about how his father got away in the immediate months after the war, in the chaos of the war. The war's over in May, and in September, he goes to Munich, where he knows that a pharmacist that he's served with on the Eastern Front is living in an apartment. And that pharmacist is with his wife, and he goes to them for safe haven.
Yes.
And he said that pharmacist knew what had happened in Auschwitz because he was friends with
the pharmacist of Auschwitz.
Victor Capesius.
Victor Capesius.
First
and
time we
so
ever heard his
that
name.
was the first time I ever heard his name. And I kept on thinking to myself, there was a pharmacist in Auschwitz, because at that time, my knowledge of the Holocaust wasn't narrow, but it wasn't as wide as it is now. And so I didn't even think of a pharmacist being in Auschwitz. Why would you need a pharmacist at the time? And so when we walked home, I kept on saying to him, well, they're picking his brain, because his brain's so big, he knows everything. and I said, one day I have to really look into this and see. Of course, there was no Google. You're talking, you couldn't. So I trying to look for documents, and that was so that seed was set, and many books and journals and magazine pieces later, and me doing my own memoir in between of health. My mind came about.
And the way, for those of you who do writing, you'll understand this, that over the years, Trisha would go a long stretch, 2 years or something, and nothing would happen, and then there'd be an article that would relate to this, and she'd collect some information on Capesius. So
it's such an untold story, because we forget, particularly at Auschwitz, there was 7,000 of them that worked there. So he was just one, So my desire kept on growing over and over, because I'm so inquisitive about everything.
And you had to find a publisher.
Yeah, that was another thing. I had to find a publisher who would accept me, because of you. In our industry, like many industries, if it's acting, you're judged by what you've written before. So here I am coming from, writing pieces on Home Depot opening up in Sunset Harbor to health stories. Will someone take me? So I got very lucky. I got a publisher in England, Crux Publishing, and they do primarily World War II books.
And since Trish doesn't look like a traditional historian from World War II, she probably had to find an English publisher who understood that her wacky way of dressing is just British. So
31 years later.
So this is 1986. She meets Mengele's son. The pharmacist of Auschwitz is planted in her head. And then we don't leave the Third Reich